welcome to Thursday Reviews. Can you believe it? Episode 60. Anyways, today we are going to be reviewing the Drok USB power meter. This is it, the USB tester. It looks simple, and it is, but it does more than you might think. It has two USB outputs labeled 1 and 2. Output 1 is meant for general charging, but can also transfer data. Output 2 has a special IC chip meant for fast charging, while maintaining safe current levels. This cannot transfer data. Let's plug it in and see what it looks like. It's got two screens. The red numbers are for voltage, and the blue ones display the current. The voltage rating for this thing maxes out at 15 volts, which is way more than you'll ever need for a USB measurement. It requires over 3.2 volts to first power up. There is no battery. The current is limited to 3 amps, but if you read the manual, it says it can go up to 10 amps, but only for a short time. Anyways, you'll notice the voltage reading is coming from my USB hub, and there's nothing plugged in, so it reads 0 amps. It's pretty small. It's about 2 3/4 inches by 1 inch, or 6.99 centimeters by 2.54 centimeters. It does much more than just read voltage and current, though. There is a button on top to switch between 7 different display modes. This is the first one, just voltage and current. Clicking it over to the second mode shows the capacitance mode. The numbers on bottom show the amount of milliamp hours that have gone into whatever you're charging. The red number increases every 1000 milliamp hours. Basically, if I've charged my phone or something and it now has 1,417 milliamp hours of capacity that it didn't have when I first plugged it in, it would show up like this. This means 1,000, and this is the additional 417 milliamps to the total. Anyways, the third mode is power in watts, which is displayed at the bottom. This mode is just a convenience, really, because you can just calculate watts by multiplying voltage and current in a DC system, but they decided to put it in anyways. The rest of the modes are just combinations of everything else so far. The fourth mode is capacitance with voltage and current. It shows that first, then the capacity a few seconds later. The fifth mode is power and volts amps. Again, shows that first before switching to watts a few seconds later. The sixth mode is capacitance and power. It displays the milliamp hour for a few seconds and then power. Pretty self-explanatory. The seventh mode shows everything. It begins with volts and amps, then capacity, and finally power. This is the one I usually keep it on. The capacitance number is stored in memory even after unplugging it. It can be cleared in two ways. The first is if you plug a new device in to start charging. The milliamp hour number blinks and resets to 0. You can do this manually as well. You just hold down the mode button until the milliamp hour blinks and resets to 0. Who would have known this would have done so much and been so helpful? Let's show you some real-world situations for testing it. Okay, so I've got my USB meter here. And I've got a bunch of other stuff that I'm going to test. So let's start by showing you something kind of interesting. And you may have never wanted to know, but how much current draw is there from a flash drive? Let's take a look at that. Let's plug in our flash drive. There's nothing on this thing. And so you can see the current draw on the bottom is 0.04 amps. 0.04 amps, so 40 milliamps. Now what's interesting about this is we can calculate power based on this as well. We're at exactly 5 volts times 0.04 amps. That means we are at 0.2 watts. So if we go over to the power screen, then we are at exactly 0.20 watts, which goes to show that in a DC system, we are multiplying the voltage times the current. Now I'm going to plug in my iPhone, which is right here. I'm using it. It's at 75% of battery, but whatever. Okay. Now we're going to see the current draw from my USB hub. So you can see it's plugged into my USB hub. Let's see. Let's turn it off. Oh, it was already on the lock screen. Let's just plug it in. And the voltage drops a little bit. Let me keep it here and see where it settles. About 4.8 volts and 0.8 amps. And if we look at capacitance, it's going up slowly. Power is about 3 watts, just under 3 watts. And now if I have it show everything, we'll keep it on this mode, actually. So you can see 3 milliamp hours have been added to. Well, battery died. The battery in my camera had 50-some minutes left on it, and it died, so we are going to test that out on this charger as well. What I was trying to get through explaining there was the reason this is on 11 is because now there is an additional 11 milliamp hours in my phone that was not there before I plugged it in. So now we are going to charge my iPad, which is at like 30-some%. I should probably leave this plugged in. Okay, it is charging. So we're at almost 7 watts, so almost double the power, and about 1.4 amps. So it takes a lot more power to charge the iPad. Now, it would actually be a good idea to hold this button down and clear the capacitance number back to 0 when you're doing this. So now it's showing the voltage and current, the capacitance, which is just 0, because I've just now plugged it in, and the power, which is a little over 6 watts. Okay, so there we go there. So it was kind of unexpected, the fact that my camcorder battery died, so let's charge it up. Let's see what kind of power we get from that. So the battery charger itself looks like this, and the cable that comes with it is just a USB thing. So let me just plug this in, and it is USB powered. So let's see what that does. So again, let's clear the capacitance number. If it's high enough, it will do it automatically. So you can see there's no power or anything. The batteries just slip in to the side here like this. And we'll see what happens. It's at about 3.6 watts. 0.73 amps, which is not too bad. Yeah, 3.5 watts. And already I don't know if you saw it, 6 milliamp hours have already been added to this battery, which is what the 006 means on the capacitance screen. This next screen, I've now added 6 milliamp hours to here. This periodically updates. So yeah. Now I actually need to keep these batteries charging, so I'm going to plug it into another one of my USBs. And instead, I will continue to do some tests. We will plug in my Olight S2R charger here, which runs on USB. And you can see there's no current draw, even though there's an LED lighting up. And so there's no waste of power, even when this is not used. Now, this light is not actually dead, but for demonstration purposes, let's find out the current draw. Lights up red, and it's drawing 0.7 amps, which I think is similar to my phone, wasn't it? The capacitance has gone up a little, 3.5 watts. 3.5 watts of power, so that's pretty good. Not too high. Let's see what the capacitance number updates to when it does. We're at exactly 3.5 watts, which is interesting. There, just doubled. Man, it went all the way up to 24. Now if I unplug the thing, you see the power drops to 0 because it's now not charging anything, and the current draw also went to 0. So now let's do some accuracy measurements. So we're actually going to plug this charger back in, and this charger is interesting because you can actually measure the positive and negative ring around here with a voltmeter, and you can measure the current draw. So I'm going to be charging nothing. I'm going to be charging my multimeter, basically. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So we're going to be measuring, firstly, let's just measure the voltage coming off of this and see if it's right. So we're just going to use this mode. You can calculate watts on your own if you wish to. Let's just start by measuring voltage. So we'll go on DC volts. Sorry, the sun actually kind of came out here, so it's going to be a bit reflective. Whatever. So if I were to measure the voltage, I touch both of these points here. It's about 5 volt, 4.68 volts, but you got to remember that that's going through this cable, and through the device itself. So this is going 5 volts straight from the USB hub itself. And then you have this cord plugged in going all the way to a charger with its own circuit in it and LED. So the voltage is going to be a little bit lower. Okay, let's start on the 10 amp scale. Switch my probe lead over here, and we're measuring DC, and we're going to do the exact same thing. And now it'll actually think that I'm charging, so the current should go up, and the light should turn red, and the current number on here in blue should be the exact same on my actual voltmeter screen. Ready? 0.08. There you go. It's accurate. 0.08 amps shows on my Drok meter here, and on my Klein meter over there on the right, it's showing 0.083. It gives me an extra digit. So now I'm going to go over the pros and the cons. Let's start with the pros. The first thing is the fact that it is so small. This is it compared to a flash drive. It's really not that much bigger, and yet it has so much more components inside, and it just, yeah, that's on the side there. Just, I don't know, it's really well put together and maximized for space. I also like the fact that the numbers are really easy to read on screen, and that everything just makes sense. And the numbers are very bright, they show up nice and clear, they don't flicker on cameras or anything. I also like that these things are relatively cheap. I mean, you can get these things for about 10 bucks on Amazon, and they do exactly as advertised, and yeah, 10 bucks is 10 bucks, well spent. I also like that it has many modes. You can just cycle through them very easily, and it shows a lot more than just the voltage and current. It shows combinations of capacitance and power and all that stuff that I went over already. I just like the fact that it can display so many different things. So now I'm going to go over the cons. So the first thing is, when you wiggle it around in a USB socket, it tends to flicker and just like, you know, just maybe stop charging for momentarily, or just it can behave kind of weirdly if you are trying to move it around. Just the slightest bit of wiggling on the USB cable can make it behave kind of weirdly. So I guess just plug it in and don't touch it. Now I've seen ones made kind of like this flash drive, where the USB is built into the device and it does not have a little cable like this, and that makes it even worse, because now, instead of having a cable and you can kind of move the device around, now the slightest bit of movement on the actual device would cause it to flicker and do weird things. So I would recommend getting one with a short cable like this instead of the USB sticking right out of it like it does on this flash drive. The only other con I have is the fact that it is bright. If it's like dark in your room or kind of dimly lit in your room, this will be one of the brightest things in there. The red and blue lights are brighter than you would think they would be. And as long as you're not using it in complete pitch blackness, then I think you'll save your retinas from being burned away. Okay, I might have been exaggerating a little bit there, but you know. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Thursday Reviews. I will upload again soon, and I hope to see you then.